The other thing that's difficult that really no other industry I can think of does is subscriptions to physical products, right? Like recurring subscriptions that the store needs to be prompted to place the order. The store needs to be prompted to set one aside for the customer, and they need to be able to manage that inventory and know what they have available for non-subscribers. It's super complicated. The closest thing I can think of to like the complexity of our product lines is like a Napa Auto Parts, where you go in there and you have to tell them what kind of piston you have before you can find the right windshield wiper. Comics are like that kind of level of metadata and information that you have to sort of warehouse and control. And it's more complex than most systems are just built for right out of the box.
Hi, it's Comic Industry Insiders, a weekly podcast where I talk to the people behind the scenes of the comic book industry and talk about the mechanics, the structure of how it works. This week, we're going to do a quick short episode because we did a longer episode with our two guests this week many months ago, where we got to know deep into their stories. And I love these guys. Genuinely love these guys. That's not even like a Hollywood love you, baby. These two, they just like, they bring you in, they make you want to just become their buddy and like go hang out, which we do every chance we get. This week, we've got DJANGO BOHREN. I don't know. You know what? Well, I really wish I had that last name down better. And Jeff FIGLEY, I think is how you pronounce your last name. Yeah. It's Jeff FIGLEY. The two founders of a POS system called Comic Shop Assistant, which has given comic shops an alternative to what some of the other systems out there, including one that is most stores have that is going completely out of business. So, gosh, once again,
what a world.
Comic Suite. RIP. I know, baby. Well, thank you guys for jumping on. Really do appreciate it. Just behind the scenes, I'll tell everybody, we kind of pulled this one together at the last minute because we knew we wanted to do this. We just didn't know when exactly it was going to happen. And Jeff, I understand that you were asleep. Yes. 23 minutes ago. Is that right?
Just about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. That's listen, the fact that you showed up this bright-eyed and bushy-tailed just talks about the character of who Jeff is.
Oh, you should have seen the text messages back and forth between DJANGO and I. It was I was wiggling. I
don't know. Do I have to? Anyway.
I gotta go help my mom, bud.
Well, thank you for jumping on. I wanted to begin this. We did talk about this on like I said, in a longer form in our longer interview. But tell us a little bit about the origin of CSA, Comic Shop Assistant, and how. Why did you decide to build your own when there were other options out there?
Well, that's a great question. And like many things DJANGO and I have been doing in our life, I think it's been pretty influenced by the like DIY kind of like music scene. I certainly model almost everything I do off of like if I could become a successful musician. And DJANGO's grown up around musicians and seen the kind of grassroots way that stuff and success comes to those folks. So anyway, that to say, DJANGO and I built this thing out of self-preservation and a need for our own comic shop, which is genuinely where I believe most good things come from. Not like trying to be like, I got a product I'm going to sell. But, you know, DJANGO and I have spent over a decade in a comic shop together, and DJANGO has, despite what he will tell you, a tremendous amount of skills at building websites. And yeah, it seems like we found ourselves at a moment in time where we were perfectly kind of cross-met with our interests and our skills and our needs. So yeah, we built it for ourselves, and it didn't take long before folks heard about it or saw it and were interested in having it in their store as well. So that's one of the things I'm real proud about, is that, you know, it's a thing that came from a very genuine space of need.
Two things I want to touch on there, just to double tap quickly. You still run, it's a comics place, or the comics place.
Comics Place. Oh, there it is. Comics Place.
There it is. There it is. Which was a long-standing shop before you two jumped in, and has continued. And you still run it to this day, right? You still
Absolutely.
are on in the shop, dealing with customers, dealing with subscriptions and inventory and all of that, right?
That's the running the shop. Being in the shop a few times a week is pretty important to us, not just for the shop, but also for Comic Shop Assistant. Like, I don't want to get to a point where we're out of touch with what's going on in the store. A lot of the things that we've developed for the program have been because one of us got mad at the way things worked and we needed a solution for it. So
there should be some sort of longitudinal study done on like rates of dementia for people who own comic shops, because no, like, think about it, you know, like, doing new mental exercises is one of the great things that you can do to, you know, sort of stave off that sort of brain tepidness.
Very true.
So to that end, every Tuesday and Wednesday there is a new thing that the comics industry has put on a platter for retailers to kind of puzzle through and figure out how to solve. So yeah, I think that, like, it'd be very interesting. Just being in a store forces you to practice mental dexterity in a way, and in so doing shows us as people running a store and building a point of sale system what are the problems coming up, what are the new hurdles to get over.
Well, that's a new one.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a necessary component. If we want to say that we're building a point of sale system for comic shops, I think it's very important that both of us are in comic shops, seeing the problems that are arising. How do new brains and employees encounter the systems that we're building for a comic shop? It might make sense in our heads, but also giving it to somebody who's maybe only been working in a shop for 9 months and how they ingest this system that you're creating. All of that allows us to make, I think, a more powerful and usable system.
One thing I from your intro, I don't want to lose. I'm going to hit it, and then I come back to something you just said, which I had a sort of an epiphany moment this week, where I realized that for my own company, for Prana DM, we had an inflection point where we really took off in our growth, and it was that moment of deciding to create something for everyone. Mm-hmm. Right. It was that sort of punk rock DIY. I'm going to make a zine. I'm going to teach people how to be a recording studio. I'm going to do everything so that I understand it better, and B, people respect my point of view on this, which has led to all of the work that we've been able to do in this last year and a half since we started this program. But the other piece that I don't want to lose is now seems to be the time where software as a service is almost mandatory for running a comic shop, right? You, because of your need, because of what you're creating, has to be continually developed and continually changed as the data systems that are coming into comics are changing, and their new stakeholders, as the complexities of running a shop change on a week-to-week basis. Literally, like, I cannot imagine, having run a comic shop myself for 18 years, something like that. I could not imagine having done it now without somebody like you.
I think you can do it, but you're limited to what a brain or two can hold. And, you know, it really kind of stifles growth if you're trying to remember who wants the B cover and who wants the C cover every single week. Because at some point you're going to fumble that, and you're not going to be able to keep all those preferences in your head. And, you know, comics just balloon. They just won't stop growing. They're relentless. And having something that can manage that is super important for everybody, I think.
It's a unique aspect that for Django and I, again, finding ourselves in the right place at the right time, like, because our comic shop functioned just how you described it for 30 years, you know, with previous owners, like pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, you know, all done in-house. Django and I took over the shop, you know, inheriting it. So there were, like, you want to improve and make changes, but you also want to honor the character of this comic shop that's been around for a long time and what customers have come to expect, the abilities to like change covers, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that, you know, inheriting our store at the time we did in the way that we did has allowed us to strike a good line of trying to innovate and move forward while also honoring the personality that is what makes customers love each unique comic shop that they go to. They all have a unique personality.
I would want to jump right into the walkthrough that we had planned for this conversation. But before we do, let's take just a moment and talk about we're talking about some of the struggles and complexities of running a comic shop, especially running a modern day comic shop. But just from a data point of view, can you give people who are not running shops, that are maybe they're just interested in the business side of this, and that's why they listen to this program, what are the complexities? How many SKUs are you dealing with? How many customers, how many line items are in a regular week for a comics retailer to deal with?
Are you asking for just a soundbite?
I am. I'm looking
Okay.
for it. Let's go.
The way that I described what we're doing to my mom when she asked what the difference was between a point of sale and what we have to deal with in comics. First of all, every year we get more SKUs than a grocery store carries at one time. So in 2 years, we've got 2 grocery stores worth of barcodes. And comics data has been around for what, 10 years? So that's 10 grocery stores worth of barcodes at a minimum before you even start looking at back issues. So it's a ridiculous number of products to keep track of. And that's before you even add board games or toys or anything like that. So, you know, comics are maybe 4,000 or 5,000 SKUs every month that gets added to your system. And the other thing that that's difficult that really no other industry I can think of does is subscriptions to physical products, right? Like recurring subscriptions that the store needs to be prompted to place the order. The store needs to be prompted to set one aside for the customer, and they need to be able to manage that inventory and know what they have available for non-subscribers. It's super complicated. The closest thing I can think of to like the complexity of our product lines is like a Napa Auto Parts, where you go in there and you have to tell them what kind of piston you have before you can find the right windshield wiper. Comics are like that kind of level of metadata and information that you have to sort of warehouse and control. And it's more complex than most systems are just built for right out of the box.
Yeah. And deal with those changes every single week, right? I mean, it's
sometimes minute to minute, man.
Yeah.
There was something that changed from a really popular artist to a less really popular artist after people had placed their orders recently. And it went from like, you know, something you would want 500 of to something you would want 100 of.
Right.
And, you know, that stuff changes midstream. How do you deal with it?
Well, luckily the comic shops involved have you. We need as many of you guys thinking about this as we can get. So why don't you walk us through? So let's say I'm a comics retailer. I'm looking at I've got Comic Suite. I've been using Comic Suite for a couple decades. I'm used to it. I'm used to how things run. I'm used to being able to blame Diamond when things are wrong. Suddenly I know I have to make a change. So why don't you walk me through, what does CSA look like today, and why is this the choice I should be making?
Adam, are you asking us to screen share?
Would you screen share? There's a little button right there that just says share with a little arrow.
Let me get a screen share going here.
Get on it.
Oh, I love it. Well, what CSA looks like today is a very colorful, wonderful set of tools. Yeah, there are so many things that a comic shop needs in our mind to get through just a day, let alone a week and then a month, the period between issues being released. But we've kind of packaged a lot of that stuff into this website here. So there's a bunch of stuff that is helpful, you know, on the homepage here. Again, a really important thing for comic shops is just tracking how much money they're making daily or weekly. Another huge problem for comic shops is fighting the attrition rate of subscribers. We all order comics and subscribe them to people in the hopes that they will be buying them regularly and picking them up in a timely fashion. So one thing that's necessary for us is building tools to be able to quickly identify when readers seem to lapse or have more things set aside for them than you would want, so you can contact them as soon as possible. In our store, before having a point of sale system or anything, files would get very big. And like when I started there, I asked like the manager at the time, and he'd just sort of always be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's good for it," which was my relationship with Django BOHREN as a name for like 8 months. Was a subscriber in our comic shop that just had a criminally large file filled with crossed comics. And I'd be like, "Who is this Django BOHREN?" And Roman would be like, "Oh, he owns a local business. He's a real cool guy. He'll be good for it." But
He's good
again,
for it.
That's part of the unique personality that allows comic shops to thrive, but also tightening that up is incredibly important to make sure you're not losing a bunch of money. But the really important things that CSA does, just to kind of pitch it to folks, is provides a really in-depth bit of information for all of the customers or distributors that come into your store. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right here. But being able to make sure that all of your customers have a place in your server where you can easily keep track of their subscriptions. So we're in Django's account here because we're throwing him under the bus. Look at that, Crossed in My Little Pony comics. He's into it.
It's the quality.
Yeah. So over here, you can click somebody's holds, and it allows you to see all of their subscriptions. They're all alphabetically listed there. You can make real cool changes like changing the quantity or easily change the start and end issue of a subscription. And that way you can make sure if folks are leaving that you're not over ordering for them after they're gone. You can easily swap your covers. But another very cool thing in these little digital bedrooms, which is how I refer to them, and Django hates it.
I hate it.
You can hit hold over here. You can get on your computer or your phone or your tablet a visual look at the things that are set aside for your customers, and it arranges them alphabetically by the week pulled. And you can get all this information about these items just as you're looking at a person's file. So you can see how many they have set aside, but it also shows you how much of that item you have on your shelf inventory. You can make bulk changes and individual changes of removing them, changing subscription statuses. All of that's organized by the week pulled here. So you can go down and see all these things that are set aside for your customers, and that all works together to give you really succinct data in a variety of places, showing you who has a lot of things set aside or a lot of money set aside. You're seeing these are red because it's Django. So yeah, like that's a brief look at it, but you can do anything with these controls for all these different contacts you have in your systems. Again, change subscriptions easily, manipulate things that are set aside for them, place special orders, look at all the different types of credits that you can give to them. A really big thing for us was being able to handle prepayment. That was a thing that in the 30 years that our shop existed before we were a part of it, our request special orders shelf was always huge. And it was always a mixed bag of success as to whether or not people would come in and purchase these things that they asked for. So being able to tackle prepayment is a huge, huge thing that I think anybody listening kind of understands the need for if they don't have it. But yeah, so everybody gets their own little, again, digital bedroom here. All of the information you need about them is tracked here. And then it laces out into your invoices and your orders and allows all of your numbers to be, calculated as you're placing orders to make sure you're not over ordering or under ordering.
Something I want to hit on that interface. That's all. Is this all web based? Is this all on their computer? Obviously, you mentioned that it's displayable on someone's phone or tablet. Maybe they're working out on the floor and not at the register, and if someone has questions.
Great story of success, Adam, that I like to pack around is about a year and a half ago. I was on my honeymoon in Scotland, and I did an FOC on my phone on a train using Scotland Wi-Fi. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that a lot.
Pretty good.
I'll show you a little bit about transactions here. So we'll go back into this guy's account. You guys can see that all right?
Yeah.
All right. So if we're looking at somebody's pulls, there's a couple ways you can start a transaction. If it's just some joker off the street, you can hit anonymous transaction and ring them up. Real easy. But if it's somebody who's in the system already, you can go to their account and you can either tie the transaction to their account, or you can do it from their polls. So this is a list of everything that's set aside for this guy. We're going to hit new transaction from polls, enter a pin so that we know who rang the transaction up. And then it's going to just add all of this stuff to the transaction. And it's even going to, depending on the person's preferences, it will add a bag and a board for every single item that's on there. It'll automate their discounts. And from within the transaction, you can subscribe and unsubscribe people. So what I usually do on a Wednesday is just ring people up, and then I'll scroll through their list and say, oh, looks like you're not subscribed to this book. Do you want me to add it? And we can do it right there from that screen, either before or after we finish tendering the transaction. Another thing that we have in here is the ability to see if somebody's bought something already. So we did that kind of to prevent a couple speculators that we had who would come in on a Wednesday morning and buy their limit of whatever the hot book was, and then they would come in a day later with a different staff working and buy their limit again. And
very jazzy. Very jazzy, y'all.
Super fun. So we made it so that we can assign a maximum quantity that an item can be on somebody's transactions before it throws up this little red note. We leave it as 1 for this coffee because it's good for our demos, but normally it would be like on a comic. It also helps our buddy who can't remember if he bought the comic last week or not. It's cut down on our returns for that guy quite a bit.
I remember there are times when I would sell the same book. You just like that cover. I just love this cover. Apparently, I keep buying this cover. We've all been through that. And you go to file it away, and there's like 6 of them. How do I keep buying this cover?
Yep. We also have we've brought in the entire Grand Comics database. So if we search for a comic that we have in stock, it will give us the option to sell an inventoried copy. But it'll also let us sell a back issue on the fly. So if you just have boxes that aren't inventoried, or you just bought a collection or whatever, you can sell something that hasn't been technically added to inventory. You get some extra bonus features if it's in there with, if it's in inventory, like it'll reduce your inventory, it'll put it on your website or take it off your website or whatever.
We do longer walkthroughs, but what Django's alluding to is our back issue module, which is a huge thing that we usually show folks and takes 20 or 30 minutes. But it's a way, I mean, if you have back issues and you're a comic store, you can never really easily inventory all of them at the rate they're coming into your store. So what we've done is be able to provide you specific locations for any type of box within a collection anywhere you want without needing to do the granular work of grading it and pricing it. So you can have all the information of what you have stored and the specific location of it. And if customers want to inquire about it, they can do it that way. So it's a really easy way to battle the giant boxes of separate alphabetized collections you've been acquiring, Django.
Dude, was this entire exercise, you guys agreeing to this interview and such, was this really just so that you could advertise that you have a Hulk 180 and an 8.5 for $925 at the store? Was that?
Yeah, I thought about bringing up the 181 and a 9.4, but that felt ostentatious.
Usually he uses our giant collection of Tomb of Dracula first appearances of Blade, but that's a little showy.
Somehow we ended up with a bunch of those over 4 collections or something.
Awesome. That's excellent. Well, I would love to. Maybe someday we can do another version of this so we can see that back issue module, because I think that's going to be, just from what you've told me, it sounds an incredibly powerful tool for kind of a standard comic shop. It does remind me of a thing I want to talk to you guys about. I have a crazy idea about back issues someday.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, good. Carry on.
I mean, transactions, it's kind of straightforward, kind of complex. Comics need all kinds of weird little things. Easy ways to, sell Pokemon singles and have them be priced on the fly, so you can change the price real easily. This is that prepay thing that Jeff was talking about, where you can take prepayment for somebody before something comes in, so that if they take 6 months to pick it up, that's not your problem. You've already been paid for it. You just have to keep track of it. And then a variety of tenders and bulk discounting, all the tools that you would expect to see in a transaction, plus a few that are specific for comic stores, like putting something back on the shelf or back into somebody's file, depending on how they want to take it off of that transaction.
I don't want to distract us too much, but I'd like to put a pin in coming back to looking at the reporting, because you're talking about prepaid transactions. That means that you're holding money, and I'd love to see how you're tracking that from just a financial point of view later on. I don't want to.
It's just a gift certificate. It's a fancy gift certificate.
Interesting. Okay,
it's held in the system. Yeah.
Great.
But do your spiel about what it is, Django.
So a gift certificate is just money that you owe somebody, right?
Yeah.
A store credit is just a gift certificate that is attached to a specific person, right? And then a prepayment is a gift certificate attached to a person, attached to an item. So different states have different rules about how far in advance you can take prepayment for something. So in order to kind of work around that, this is just a gift certificate that you've sort of earmarked for an item. And if that item doesn't come in, or that person demands a refund, you can untether it from that item, and it becomes a regular credit, or you can just run it as a return.
And then someday that item finally comes in and you go,
dang it. Where's that guy's number?
All right, cool.
Yeah. So that's transactions. We'll look real quick at an item here. Items are huge, right? Like there's tons of metadata that comes in for items. We import that using distributor CSV files every week and every month. That's one thing that's different about CSA than some of the other systems out there, is that you're in complete control of all your data. That also means that you have a little more work to do on the importing and cleaning up. But if you don't like the way titles look, you can change them. If you want to rewrite the description to get better Google search results, nothing's going to overwrite that for you. And being able to kind of be in touch and in control of that stuff gives you a lot more power after you've brought it in. So this is just like a way to represent all the stuff, barcodes, categories. We can have a transaction pop up text. So if you ring somebody up, it pops up and says, make sure to get their ID, or this thing, the first one's $15, the next one's $30 if it's a hot book or whatever. Because we started this after distribution had gotten weird, we have lots of tools for saying where you can get things and controlling your different discounts and whether it's discontinued at one place or not. That makes it super easy to place your orders from the place, the distributor that's best for you. Let's see. What else is interesting in here?
Can I give a recommendation for this screen?
Yeah.
I don't know if this will help any, but I'm just thinking back towards when I was taking special orders and if I'm trying to decide on the fly who I'm going to order it from, one of the things I would love to know is how close to their order minimum am I going to be with this item?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can just have a little field that tells you where you're at. That would probably go in the orders section down here, and you could have minimums for this item, and then for the whole distributor there. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, cool.
I like that.
Look at that. We're making it better while we talk. Amazing.
Always. So that's a big thing about CSA. Django and I could not be more different in the ways that we look at the world and approach problems and approach solutions. And we got kind of set into this arranged marriage many years ago. But because of that, everything about our shop and everything about CSA, the only thing that we have in common is that we respect where the other person is coming from. So we do a lot of work to understand a different person's point of view and how they're approaching the problem that we're describing. So to that end, we really approach all of our CSA users with that same mindset. We don't like, when we were trying different systems, being told like, oh, that's just not how it works, so you can't do that. Again, the unique personalities of comic shops are what make this industry so awesome. So making space in our brains to understand the problems that other people are describing and find solutions that really do meet in the middle of everyone's needs is the goal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm going to touch on tags real quick,
Please.
and then let Jeff talk a little bit about orders. I think tags are like simultaneously the coolest and most boring thing that you could ever possibly talk about. But it basically gives us really flexible ways of describing extra information about a product. And our dream, and just to be clear, we're not there yet because we don't totally trust the data that's coming in. That's part of what we're working with the Comet standard to try to get uniform data coming into stores so that we can do things like use these tags to subscribe people to rules instead of subscribing them to a series. So instead of saying, I want all X-Men comics or X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, you would say, this person wants every Peach Momoko cover that's in the X-Men family that costs less than $30. And then when it's time to place an order, that gets prompted to the store. And when those books come in, they're prompted to pull the book for people. My kind of metric for when we think we'll be ready to actually do that is when Brian Michael Bendis's name is the same every time it comes in on a tag from the distributors. Right. There's 9 ways that can be represented.
Man, I tell you, for many reasons, as soon as we can get that all locked down, will be better for all of us. You know, especially those of us who are looking at the data afterwards.
Yeah. So we're building the infrastructure for that, and hope to have something ready as soon as it feels clean.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's keep going.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to quickly show a little bit about the order system, which, ordering comics is kind of insane. Like Django said, the Napa Auto Parts stuff. There is so many items available every week. They're in series. Sometimes the data that we're provided from our distributors doesn't put them in those series. So having a way that you can easily see all the things that you're responsible for ordering and the needs of your customers while going through them is hugely important. So this could take longer than I'm going to have it take. So I just want to show you a quick glimpse of what like an FOC looks like after you load in your FOC. So I'm going to jump down to an issue with some sales history here. So every week on your FOCs, you would bring those through and you would see stuff like this. You're getting some color coding to let you know if the order distributor that you're working in is where you have designated preferring to get this comic. So because we started building this after the fracture, being able to designate at a publisher level where you want to be getting the books from that publisher in terms of all of your available distributors is incredibly important. So we've done it so you can easily skip all the items in an order that you have designated as being preferred to order somewhere else. You're seeing this green color coding here. That's our saying that this is an item we want to get from the distributor I'm in right now. You can get a lot of information regarding your sales history and the requests for your customers in here. So you can get a quick glimpse at how many people are subscribed to a book and a look at the names there. You can see how many people are special ordering it or asking for this item outside of a subscription here. And then those numbers are brought together to give you a total pull value. So that's what you need to order in order to meet all of the requests and subscriptions for an item. And then you can designate using these shelf target numbers how many copies you always want of that issue after you finish all of your pulls for a given week. So next month, when issue number 7 comes through my FOC, CSA will remember that I wanted 2 for the shelf after I finish my pulls. So as these go up and down from issue to issue, it will all be added together to give you a suggested number that is your total pulls plus your shelf target. So that way you can kind of lock in those shelf numbers as everything else fluctuates. And then you can designate how many you actually want to be ordering. And then CSA has a lot of cool flags to help you make sure you don't over order or under order items. So anytime you're below the suggested number, it's going to throw up some flags. And at the end of your order, there's a way for you to gather all of those flags together. And there's a long history of accidental errors I've made ordering that we won't go into now, but if you want to watch Django giggle at my failures, a plug for our CSA walkthroughs that we do. But we've built some really cool ways to make sure if you, like Jeff, accidentally throw an extra 0 onto your Mighty Mouse numbers, that it tells you, hey, are you sure this is quite a bit more expensive than you'd think? And then also
a whole lot of Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, whole lot of Mighty Mouse. In addition to that information, you get historical sales data for all the previous issues in your series as you're looking at your items. So you can see how many you received of previous issues and how many were claimed, which in a perfect world, everyone buys all of the comics they're subscribed to on the week they come out. But if you run a shop, you know that that's not the case. So this claimed number gives you the sum of how many total you've sold so far, plus how many are set aside in customers' files, assuming they're going to get them. So you can see if you received X number, you can reliably trust that you'll be able to get X number out of your store. And then it shows you where you sold it from, if it's from the shelf, which is cool. Anytime somebody's buying multiple historical issues off the shelf, it tells you here, and you can let them know that they could subscribe if they are interested in that. Again, we could talk about orders for a long time, but this is just a quick glimpse. I'm not even going into all the replenishment order features that we've built, so you can take a look at all the items that you've sold in the last week or month and get a lot of information about how many you have, how many are on order, and how many you need to order to get back up to the spots that you want to get to manage your stock. And then also a really cool thing is auto subs. You can see this from a variety of places on the website, but especially in orders. At any given time, you can use this auto sub button to, for example, when a new series starts, like Absolute Batman, you can look up pre-existing series with subscribers and pick and choose from those people who you want to move over to a new item subscription, which is great because for us, like, we didn't run out of Absolute books in those first couple weeks because we had known how many we kind of needed to meet that need and then go above from there. So auto subs are incredibly important, and people can opt in and out of those. But there are a tremendous number of things you can do with ordering. But in the interest of the time that we're hanging out here, I'm just going to leave it at that. Just know a lot of really cool things.
One quick question before we leave that screen. Is that shelf number, how is that rule set? Is it a percentage? Are you doing it per title?
You get to designate it at any moment. So each month when that issue comes through, it remembers the shelf target that you've designated just from your own brain on there. But it remembers it based on the issue sequence number and series code. So what I do is I look at this shelf target number, and then I look down here to see how many copies I am selling off the shelf regularly. Obviously, with most comics, you start to sell fewer and fewer off the shelf because people are subscribing, but also people are less likely to jump on in subsequent issues. So I look at this record of how many I'm selling off the shelf, and I'm free to modify this at any given time to make sure it's not telling me to order 3 where for the last 2 issues I've only sold 1 off the shelf, for example.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fascinating. Thank you. Well, so what's next? You were moving to something else before I.
I was phasing out of mine. Django could quickly show you invoices, but being able to easily combine all your orders and to that end all of your invoices is incredibly important because we were doing 3 times the work when we were getting 3 different distributors' orders every week.
I think in the interest of time, I'll describe a little bit about invoices and what I love about them, but then I want to show you some of the reports because I know you're a data guy, and comic stores should be data people too. I think
so too.
Helps quite a bit in your everything. The main trouble points that we had with invoices before we built this was that DC had left Diamond, and we were doing a round of check-in for DC and a round of check-in for Diamond, and then Marvel split off, and we were doing a Lunar and a Penguin and a Diamond, and it was like this 3 alphabets and 3 processes, or import it all into a spreadsheet and alphabetize it and do it all outside of the existing system we had. So with invoices, we've made it super flexible. You can import things from any CSV that you can get from your distributors. You can take a Lunar and a Penguin and a Diamond invoice and zipper them together for check-in and zipper them together for pulling subscriptions. And you can pull subscriptions based on, item and the people who get it, or people and the items they get. Super flexible there. We can even alphabetize by first name, which I'm not a fan of, but some stores do it, and I'll bet it's just from before computers. That's how they've done it for 40 years,
From my first job in a comic shop, he said we alphabetize by first name because that's how we know them.
Yeah.
We know them by their first name.
I prefer alphabetizing by last name because I can't remember their first name.
Fair.
So lots of tools there in the invoices. And it's like our invoice process took something that kept Jeff and I at the shop from like 10 a.m. until 5 or 6 or 7 p.m. some weeks, and got it down to maybe a 4-hour job for one person, 5 hours for one person. So lots of streamlining in there. And lots of flexibility because every store has different geography. Some stores just slide things in boxes. Some stores have to pull open a drawer for every book they put in there. So, we wanted to make sure that we could help you no matter where you were checking in relation to the files that you were pulling.
That's, I mean, especially when you're paying staff by the hour, that differential, that's a massive shift in your profit line.
Yeah. It can really add up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, let me bring up, I'm going to bring up our reports here. So when we first started this, we were just pulling reports raw out of the database. And the first user we got was like, hey, what did I sell today? And we're like, oh no, we have to make these pretty and flexible and stuff. So now we have that. And all of these reports over here are things that we've built with user input or just for our own curiosity. One of my favorites is the pull sales versus shelf sales, where we can see this ridiculously complex list of what your sales are for items off the shelf versus items out of pulls. And it should be no big surprise that comics sell off the shelf less than trade paperbacks do by percentage. But that was a question we had, so we decided to figure out how to answer it. We've got some good aging information. We've got, a Z-tape sales, pretty much any question you've got. We've built it. And when people come in and they're like, man, I used to pull this crazy report from RMH. We try to figure out how to build that report for them. Another one that we just built, and this gets pretty wonky, but here's Absolute Superman number 10. And we're working on this recent issue profit, which looks at the profit of your previous 3 issues of a series and takes into account how many copies you bought and haven't sold. So you can kind of get an idea of whether you're ordering too much for what you're able to actually sell, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
Is this series worth stocking as deep as you are right now? Or should you trim some of the fat? There's so many ways to ask questions in comics and try to answer them however we can. I mean, this thing does everything we need for our store to run. It includes reconciling registers at the end of the night. It's got a pretty robust system where you can send messages back and forth between staff members. You can have them clock in and out every day. It's just every time we come up with something or another store comes up with something and they're like, yeah, this should be tied in to this other thing in some way. We try to make that connection and make it easy to get information or jump from spot to spot to solve whatever problems and questions you have.
You guys are running a business, right? It's a retail business. You need to know how you're doing on the fly. What sort of reporting do you show? Like, am I having a good month? How are things versus last year? Can you show me what that looks like?
Yeah. So my daily metric is the sales on the week. So this is looking at sales for the day, and the percentages here are comparing it to last week. We can change that span if we want to. We could look at a year ago. I happen to know that because of our new location and some X factors, I'm not worried about whether or not we're beating last year because I know we are. But in general, we have sort of a target number that we want for this weekly total. If it dips below that, I try not to panic until it dips below it for a couple weeks. One of my fellow retailers in downtown Bellingham told me once, like, if you have a bad day, look at the week. And if you have a bad week, look at the month. And I kind of live or die by that. But, some of the reports that we bring up a lot are reports for bestsellers. So this is just a list of everything that has sold in a time span. We can filter it by category. Lets us kind of see what has sold. And when we're placing orders, we can access that exact same report, but with highlighted distributor that you're working with and the ability to add things to that specific order that you're in. But yeah, it's we can get a Z tape, which will give you all your nightly reporting and cost of goods comparisons and everything. That one is a little bit of a pig to load, but it gives us some pretty powerful stuff. So categories, sales, percentage for that day or that time span, whatever you're looking at. All your regular old revenue and tax information. Average sales is something I like to keep an eye on. I'd rather it was 40 over 36, of course.
But like to the reporting point, like Django and I both, like he said, love posing questions and finding answers to them. And the main way that we're able to do that is by tracking a tremendous amount of data.
Yeah.
But Django from a coding background and I come from a psychology background. So like identifying control and dependent variables and being able to look at a store and all the variables that feed into the resulting things, which is your success or the things left on your shelf, being able to identify those variables and then use the data that's being tracked to form questions. We both love that. And it's been great having users pose those same questions to us because, a tool is only as powerful as its practical application or its usability. And so being able to integrate a lot of those high level things into day-to-day processing, and again, not just be in our hothoused heads of what this is capable of doing, but actually seeing what our employees do with these tools and do they get hung up on certain parts. And so again, it's all road tested, which is a huge benefit.
Most of what we're seeing, is not, I won't say standard. You guys have come up with a very clean design. You've become a very intuitive design. In fact, the stores that I talk to who use it, that's one of the things they talk most about is that the information is laid out, the UX is laid out in the way that they want it to be. I'm curious to know, when you finally, was there any particular feature that when you finished it, you were like, this is the thing we needed? We weren't getting this from the other people that we took on, that we tried, because you did try other POS systems.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the value prop. This is the thing that we knew that could be done that wasn't being done.
I think that there are a handful, but the first one that came to mind, in my mind, is the back issue module. I vividly remember a Wednesday, Django and I finished our shifts and went upstairs to be like, we've got to figure something out about back issues. And over like 30 or 40 minutes, we just kind of kept tossing out ideas and poking holes in them and just kind of really refined those rock tumbles until they were shiny. But being able to create, pull out of our heads effectively and then code a way to manage all this huge inventory and overstock that categorically functions a little bit different than your week-to-week comics, because you get 50 copies of Absolute Batman #9. Those are all the same item, but you get 5 copies of Hulk 180, and each one has a different form of damage, and each one, even if they're the same grade, are discrete, unique, different items. So being able to hold those two methodologies in your head and build something that allows stores to track that stuff without needing to do the insane amount of work that oftentimes people assume is required to be able to go through and look at your inventory. That's one of those things that, again, it was just sort of a side thing because it wasn't necessary for our day-to-day running a business. But once we pulled it out of the ether, it's a thing that I love watching people's eyes light up in our walkthroughs when we start talking about it and they see the potential for it.
No kidding. One of the things that hit me as we were really beginning this process, and I think it goes to something that I think is indicative of the people who built this, right? When I think of the two of you, as I said in the introduction, like you just are just so inviting, right?
That's Jeff.
Well, yeah. Anybody with that haircut, Django, is willing to stand out. But one of the things that struck me was your opening screen is, it's talking about the daily sales and those things, but the prominent one is the birthdays of your customers, right? The value prop of the comic shop, to my mind, is it is a place for community. It's a place that people go on a weekly basis to interact with the people there, to interact with the culture that they've chosen. You build the relationship not only with the artists or the characters that they're interested in, but more importantly with the people who sell it to them. Right? You talked so much about some of the people that you're dealing with and some of the challenges and why this is easier. Can you talk about some of the ways that CSA, obviously this one jumps out. Is there anything else that jumps out for that sort of that value of connection to the customer?
I mean, I think the digital bedroom, as Jeff unfortunately refers to it, where we're looking at a customer's settings. We'll just jump in here to whoever Andrew V star is.
Yeah.
In their settings, we can say whether they like bags and boards. We can decide. We can note what kind of condition they care about. We can track all these preferences that they have, and it lets us, even if we aren't sure if they like bags and boards, when we're ringing them up, the system tells us, and we don't have to act like we don't know it, right? We can just start bagging and boarding and continue whatever conversation about the new superhero movie that we're having, or, you know, their kids or whatever. So like, I think Jeff is able to keep that stuff in his head and he can have those conversations with somebody. I'm not able to keep that stuff in my head, and it falls out as soon as they walk away.
Yeah.
But it's important to us that it feels like we know everything about our customers, because, you know, comic stores really are one part bartender, one part retail. And
Sure.
so, you know, for somebody like me who can't retain that information associated with a face, or for our new employees, you know, they have an easier time sort of meeting our customer where they expect to be met with the knowledge of their preferences on things.
Yeah, Cheers really is the comical comparison for what we think about our comic shop's needs as. So much of what we've showed you are like the bones of what a comic shop needs, or it's like the ingredients of a cake. You need good ingredients for a cake to be good, but also that's not what keeps a person coming back to your store. I mean, these tools allow you to make sure you're giving them a good amount of service, but it's that personality that a comic shop has. So like Django said, just keeping track of bags and board preferences, or when you're creating a contact, one of the primary fields for you to enter are their pronouns. Like, it's very important, like Django said, to me, meeting people where they're met, or whatever you just said, Django. You know, being able to, like, within auto subs, every one of your customers has a field for the type of auto subs that they would want. You know, like, I want all the Disney homage covers, or if Adam Hughes is the cover artist. Being able to make a space within that digital bedroom for all the nuances of personality that everybody has, and then be able to have those lace into your polling structure and your ordering structure and the interactions that you have with them at the counter. And like you said, just like a small thing like birthdays, you can build all the amazing tools to have a great comic shop, but if you aren't friendly, if you're not remembering people, if you're not creating an environment that people want to come into, all the tools don't necessarily matter. So being able to, again, mentioned it, but like, a tool is only as strong as its usability and practical application, which is, again, kind of the person using the system, the interaction, their warmth, or how inviting the space is. So all of that is just deeply baked into this system for the customers that come into the store, but also the employees that work in your store. Like, the way that the messaging system is orchestrated really allows you to make sure messages are being distributed in a holistic way, and you can keep track of the people following through with it or not following through with it, and then solve the problem of, you know, maybe where is the leak happening without singling a person out, or, you know, introducing shame into their work life or whatever. So
Right.
Thinking about people's feelings and their brains are very much what this whole thing is.
Can you guess which one of us calls people on their birthday?
I just love that there's anybody who can manage without shame. I can't imagine trying to motivate me to anything without shame. So, if I could get you, Jeff, as my manager, that'd be great.
I'll add a
Powerful
field.
stick and carrot. Yeah.
I'll add a field that says motivator.
We'll refer to it as shame response.
Let's talk. You mentioned interaction with the customer for messaging and that sort of thing. Let's talk about how CSA interacts with customers, right? Is there an interface for the customers? Are they getting messaging? How does that work?
So we have an optional email system that will send out pull reports so people know what's waiting for them in their file. It'll send out receipts. It's transactional emails. It's not intended for like a newsletter, but it is a way to communicate with people that they've got stuff to pick up. And we have, I think, 4 stores, about to be 5 stores in beta for our front-facing customer subscription tool. It's done. Like, we shouldn't call it beta. The holdup is that we realized that our servers can handle 30 or 40 stores using it. But if we do 30 or 40 stores times 200 customers each hitting it before FOC on a Sunday, we might be in real trouble. So we've got a technological hurdle that we've got a solution for, but it's got to be done just right or everything explodes. So we're making sure that we get that done perfectly, and then we can start rolling that tool out to all the stores.
And the way that looks is you as a store are able to look at your orders and your invoices and pick and choose or push the entire, swarm of items from an order or invoice to a space that your customers can go to and see what is available for pre-order or what has just come out, and look at all the covers for it, see things that they are subscribed to and what has been set aside for them, but also, most importantly, see the things that have come out that they are not subscribed to and present them with the option of, fear of missing out from their toilet when they're looking at Daredevil Cold Day in Hell with that cool Frank Miller variant, something like that. So yeah, a space for stores to navigate pushing items to, and then customers to be able to go in and say, subscribe me to this or swap this cover out. Obviously, there's a tremendous number of rules that need to be built for that, which was probably our biggest hurdle. But, being able to make sure somebody can subscribe to Batman and not accidentally subscribe to the New 52 Batman. But again, yes, those tools have been built and they're in customers' hands, allowing them to manage their subscriptions from home, which has always been kind of an end goal for us, even before we started making CSA.
Yeah. Last thing, I think, really on my list of questions, talk about how the stores customize it to their store, how they interact with the data, how is the data specialized for each one? Are they stuck looking at the same database as everybody else, which is a perfectly reasonable option if you're trying to build something like you're doing? What are the distinguishing characteristics about how a store interacts with their data with CSA versus other systems?
So we built this kind of based on the Mobi model, which was the point of sale we were using before. And we had played around with some of the other systems. And what we really liked about Mobi was that we controlled all of the data. So on a weekly basis, we upload the FOC files and change the titles, set the prices, change the tags, and just make sure that it's all set to just how we want it to be. So each store does that on their own and sort of vets the data, and nobody else touches it. That is pretty good. And I think that the long-term goal and a trick we're trying to pull off right now is how to have a parent catalog that can be pushed down to each store on a selective basis. So if a store is like, look, I don't really want to do any of this, I trust you guys not to make the titles too ugly, I'll subscribe to the whole database, and it just pushes down to them when new products are available or updated. But some stores are very picky about their titles or their series codes, and they want complete control over that. So they would say, I'll take everything, but leave these fields alone. So kind of a hybrid version of a totally controlled parent catalog where you can't change the title without asking permission, versus a completely Wild West in your own little world where you can trust an authority to do some updates and not be required to accept all those updates.
Right. Okay. So we're getting close. I feel like we're getting close to the end. So I think this is the time in any sort of sales pitch where you get to the nitty gritty. You get down to, oh, Jeff doesn't
He's
want
ready.
to stop me, or is he ready?
No. I was going to mention, to your point, like you're watching Django and I kind of in real time solve the question of how do we take what is essentially a 2-hour walkthrough showing people this system, condensing that down to a conversation in a shorter amount of time. So if people are having their interest piqued or they want to see a further explanation of any of these things, Django and I are doing weekly walkthroughs. We hang out. If you just want to, have some Capri Suns and orange slices and hang out with people who care a lot about comics, you can also just do that. But yeah, if this has piqued your interest, I would definitely encourage you to schedule a walkthrough and see the full breadth of the system.
If I'm a retailer and I'm looking at this, I'm going to scroll down probably to the last page I can find and say, what is this going to cost me? Do I have to have any special equipment? Is what exactly are the needs in order for me to shift myself from the comic suite that I've been, holding together with baling wire and chewing gum for the last decade, into this fancy new system of yours? So, what's it cost, boys?
So it costs $199 a month, and there are very few extra options for us to charge you more. We have like a consignment module you can pay an extra $20 a month for. Technically, we have limits of 2 registers, and I think it's 8 employees that can be tracked for that. A little bit more money for more, but I'll tell you a secret. Right now, we're not policing that at all. So
Gotcha.
Hop on now. Our whole goal with that base price is to have like what you need to run your store. At some point, we'll probably have some really fancy things that you can add on, but we don't like third-party requirements. We don't want to hit you up and nickel and dime you for other stuff. So it's $200 a month, a little cheaper if you pay a year in advance. If you're using an old RMH that's held together with baling wire, you might want a new computer. It'll probably work okay on your existing computer as long as you can run a modern version of Chrome. But I would recommend taking this opportunity to get a fast computer and a big monitor. You'll just have a better experience. Most barcode scanners and printers that you have in your store already will work with the system.
So
We've
my
had 2 or 3
TV that I bought because it's what came with Comic Suite.
Yeah,
that should work. That should work.
This is my publisher hack. I always check the barcode on a book before we approve it.
Ooh.
So yeah, there you go.
Tell that to everybody.
I try.
Yeah, so it's just a browser. It just runs in a browser, so it works on most devices. But fast computer, big monitor is better.
But my internet just went down. Does that mean my business is closed?
No, it means that you have a hotspot that you can tether your computer to. Our trick was going to the AT&T store and finding a 2-generation-old iPhone that they were offering for $20 a month that we could use as a hotspot and a jukebox. It's cheaper than buying their official hotspot. You get a phone with it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Also, what are you doing about credit cards if your internet went down? Tethering.
Yeah, you're right. I have to tether anyway. Everybody's paying with a credit card now. What am I thinking about?
Square dongle just in case. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, boys. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping on kind of at the last minute and doing this. This is getting Jeff out of bed because, whatever. It's like, what is it, like 10 o'clock your time? 11 o'clock?
Oh, it's 11 now. I would have been up.
Out of bed into Zoom.
Yeah. I just want to pause and plug, Adam, what you're doing, but also this industry, and then it feeds into what Django and I are doing. But just if you're listening or watching this, how amazing is our industry that people focus their career on being able to build tools for shops. And Adam, what you do, this close-knit community of people who seem like they're kind of out on the wall in their town, but I think that there's this deep awareness that our industry is strengthened by the success of more comic shops and the ease
Amen.
of which, the industry is evolving with the needs of those comic shops. I love like record stores and so many other things, but I'm just always flabbergasted after a convention or a time on a podcast like this that it seems like so many people get the need to be helping one another, and it just makes the industry go forward. So I'm so grateful, about people like yourself, Adam, and what is going on with this industry, and I hope other people don't take it for granted.
Amen to that. Amen and amen. I will say that it has been, like I said, this exercise in using what I know to teach people, but also reaching out to the smartest people I know and saying, what can we teach everybody to make us all better, make us all stronger, has been just in and of itself worth the time and effort. The idea that we're also promoting ourselves as you're promoting yourselves at the same time you're doing it, it's just almost like a side benefit. It really is wonderful. So thank you, boys, so much. Thank you for putting the effort into building this. Thanks for coming on. For those of you who are watching this on the YouTubes, we'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Do you have questions? Do you have challenges, things that we didn't cover in this conversation? I'd love to hear it. Absolutely. Go schedule yourself for the full 2-hour walkthrough. Hanging out with these guys for a couple hours, worth the time anyway. Plus, you'll learn something. As always, I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again at any show, and probably at some last minute podcast or live show as Django can step in at any given moment. All right, kids. Thank all of you for watching. If you're not liking and subscribing, please, your mom and I were both a little bit disappointed in you. So thanks, and namaste, y'all.